Good evening. You are listening to the Beat Radio Bali. This is DJ ST. We've got another Tuesday night podcast with Mr. Benjamin Casteillo.
Hi, Swart. Thanks for having me again. Oh, yeah. I'm going to be closer to the
Get
mic.
your name right.
Are we good?
Casteillo.
Casteillo. Well,
Casteillo.
People struggle to pronounce my name and to write it, so, it doesn't... I wouldn't take anything personally if I feel that that's not the right pronunciation.
Well,
you hear my accent,
I've travelled the world, so I do know how to pronounce a few things here and there, but Casteillo.
In France, we say Casteillo.
Okay, that's good for me. Casteillo. We're with Ben Casteillo. Benjamin Casteillo.
Benjamin Casteillo, Ben, Benji, Beno. I have plenty of nicknames.
He had
pick one.
He had a reawakening, you could say, a few years ago, which we spoke about in the last show. And we're going to be talking about the nature of sustainability again this evening in a series, actually, of shows.
Yes.
With Ben. Tonight's show is actually titled, Is Our Civilization Doomed? It doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but it could well be.
Well, I don't know if it's fun, but it's a very important conversation to have, I guess, right?
Yeah.
We should have a good response to that. And not based on denial of reality, but based on the proper sense-making, based on understanding of reality. So
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to try to have, by the way.
We love a bit of reality and understanding the scale and meaning of the challenges that our contemporary civilization is facing. And what do you think we are facing?
Well, basically, what we are facing is a situation in which if we continue on the trajectory in which we are definitely going ahead of a civilization collapse. So I don't want to develop what is a civilization collapse straight away, but I will maybe explain why I believe this is the case, and we'll see where that takes us. So first of all, I think most people hear that there is an issue called climate change, and an increasing number of scientific reports that show that if the climate continues to change, it will trigger such change that our civilization could be threatened. Now, climate change is one aspect of it, and it's alarming enough. But if we look at the environmental situation, there are others, such as the overconsumption of our resources. So to give you some statistics today, it's estimated that in order to be sustainable, the planet should be 1.7 times bigger than what it is today. So obviously it is not. So one of the consequences of that is resource overconsumption. Of course, when we overconsume the resources of our planet, there are consequences. And one of the major consequences of that is the destruction of the planet ecosystems. So again, sorry for the depressive statistics, but it's really important to understand the scale of the problem if we want to be able to think about solution realistically. So according to the latest UN report, it is 75% of the planet ecosystem that have been either severely damaged or destroyed. So that's quite a serious number. So of course, when we destroy the planet ecosystems, we are also destroying life on it. So another wonderful statistics, it's estimated now that about 60% of wildlife has disappeared in the last 40 years. That's really reassuring, isn't it? And of course, we also have to face the pollution of all the environment. So a statistic that shows the nature of the scale of the problem is an estimated 9 million people die of premature death due to pollution every year. So we can just put a comparison to these 9 million deaths with the state of affair with the pandemic at the moment. So this is really, really serious. And where we are now is just talking about the environmental aspect. Maybe I will, because it's a little bit complicated to understand if I just talk about alarming statistics and stuff. Maybe you want me to explain what creates global unsustainability on an ecological aspect in a very simple way.
Well, can I just mention, you talk about the resources being overused, but isn't that because there's too many people on the planet? Okay,
so sure.
And then again, at the same time, you're talking about 9 million baby births, passing away, dying. So there always seems to be this contradiction between people trying to save human life and too many people on the planet.
Okay, so I'm going to address that straight away. So indeed, there is no doubt that the increase of the world population, it has basically tripled in the last 60 years. So that's massive. is an aggravating factor. But that is not the only one. For example, we live today in a consumerist society in which the value, success and values are defined by how much we possess and how much we consume. It's a society that triggers a lot of waste, whether it's food waste or product waste. So just to give you an idea, I think it's estimated 40% of the food produce that is being wasted. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of tons every day. So when we say it is because there's too many people on the planet, I'm a little bit careful, because the first solution that will come to the mind is, okay, let's kill each other or let people die.
Let's have a war. That was always a classic one.
Well, I think some people are planning for that. But I think realistically, rationally, maybe we should first address our wastages and also our inequalities. Simply because if we want to decrease the birth rate, one of the first solutions is to address poverty in education and sex inequalities. So to promote education, access to basics, and also women empowerment. So there are ways to address that that are far better and far more civilized than just considering a forced decrease of the world population, which would be, by the way, dramatic.
For sure, which we're seeing now.
Yeah,
supposedly.
So maybe just to precise, to help the audience of making sense, because this may sound very overwhelming, like, oh my God, this is really terrific, and where are we heading? I just want to say that the issue on the ecological aspect, is our collective inability to integrate the limits of our planet. Which means basically, to simplify what are the limits of our planet, we could call it the Earth's biocapacity, which is the planet's ability to produce resources, the planet's ability to absorb pollution, and the planet's ability to repair the damage done to the ecosystems. So we have a situation of global unsustainability when the impact of humanity as a whole, the ecological footprint, is higher than the biocapacity of the planet. Which means we consume more resources than the planet can sustainably produce, we reject more pollution than the planet can absorb, and we damage the ecosystem at a higher rate than they can be repaired. And that, as a result, is a situation of global unsustainability.
So we have to learn how to live on this planet.
Yeah, basically we have to learn that our planet has limits, and that basically ignoring them, because basically we are on a competition for the exploitation of the resources in order to grow faster than our neighbors. It's not a very good idea in the 21st century. I mean, this has worked in the past, but now it is becoming increasingly unsustainable, especially with exponential technological progress and therefore abilities to extract resources.
So do you think this pandemic period that the Earth is going through right now, for the last 6 months at least, and who knows how much longer, is going to start that resurgence in the awareness at least?
Well, it's
or
hard
does it just go straight back?
It's hard to ask. I mean, I think it goes a bit in every direction. So right now, I think the main focus is on the pandemic, and I think the subject of the environmental crisis, the environmental meta crisis that we're having, is a little bit down in the ranking of what's making the news. But again,
but it has had a great effect on the environment, on the immediate environment.
So it had an impact. So to give you the scale of the impact, so we were entering an ecological debt last year. I think it was in the end of July, on the 29th of July, we had already consumed the sustainable resources provided by the planet, and we were entering a state of debt. So this year, with the epidemic, that happened on the 20th of August. So 3 weeks later. So that's the great impact of the pandemic. It's not that much.
But how about clear skies and
well, I mean, we
clear air, less pollution?
Yeah, I think that gave us, that's a sign that when we stop the rat race, things get cleaner. And I think that's a great realization.
Which is a good sign.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
No, we don't know how to stop the rat race yet.
Oh, sure. The Earth has a great capacity of rebirthing, regenerating. Like in that David Attenborough show recently, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but he highlights Chernobyl, and how nobody's lived there for 30 years, and now the forest has taken the place back over, because there's no humanity. So the Earth obviously can repair itself.
Yeah, sure. And I also, by the way, want to address, I often hear people say, we got to save the planet. I mean, I think that's ridiculous at this stage. We are not in a position to destroy the planet. We are just in a position to destroy ourselves and a big part of wildlife on the planet at the same time.
Sure.
So it's not about saving the planet and being heroes. It's about just stopping being stupid and to stop destroying ourselves and our future.
In the long term.
So, and also one thing I would like, probably something we forgot because we've been so busy working and acquiring wealth, etc. We forgot that where would we be without the planet ecosystems? Stuart, where would we be without the planet ecosystems?
Without the planet ecosystems, which are...
Well, the trees, the rivers,
the earth we have.
The natural environment.
Well, we'd be like in the moon or something. There wouldn't be anywhere to live on.
Well, we wouldn't exist, right? So there's a codependency here that's a matter of survival to take care of them. I think we forgot that. And we went into a race to run away from nature and try to reach, I don't know. I mean, I could go deep on that, but we're not going to talk about all of that. Probably also I want to highlight the fact that unsustainability is not only about the environment. Would you like to go a little bit that way?
Go ahead.
I think one of the major issues that we have also is this inability to look at the big picture and to see how the dots are interdependent and interconnected. And so talking about unsustainability until now has been mainly about trying to address symptoms of unsustainability, mostly related to the environment. Now, what we've seen also in the past decade is a big increase of inequalities, and I think this is coming even more now. I think everyone saw how much Jeff Bezos capitalized during the pandemic. So today, we are roughly in a stage where the 1% richest of the world population have about half of the global wealth and most of the profits that is being generated, while the 70% poorest have less than 3% of it. So I just want to imagine if this was a party and we had a cake to share and we were 100 and there would be enough to feed everyone in the party. But we decide that we're going to have a competition and that who comes first get the biggest part of the cake and who comes last gets, the leftover. And so the first one who win the race take half of the cake. The 29 who follow take almost everything that's left, and the 70% last have almost nothing more. So imagine how that's the current that's how the global wealth is being managed right now.
That's the way the world works.
That's the way.
There must be reasons for that.
Okay, great. So first of all, that's not the way the world works, because that's the way our current society works, right? And so I really want to highlight that, because when we think about world, it seems like this big thing that is over us and that we cannot change. But society is made of social constructs, narratives, beliefs. I mean, we are the creator of our society. So if we have a society that's dysfunctional, it's because we have not created it as it should. We have not made it functional. So where was I going with that?
Well, I was just thinking that a lot of people, that 30%, within that 30 or 50% are getting, the main slice of the action, they're quite happy.
Yeah, they are quite happy, and what? So the issue here is we have a society in which money is power, and there's a concentration of power and money in the hand of a minority that has absolutely or that doesn't see yet any interest in challenging the status quo, right? But no, let's forget about the ecological aspect. What do you think will happen in a society if inequalities keep growing? Would it be sustainable?
Who can say for how long?
Yeah, in history we've seen that it didn't work. At some point there is social tensions and there is uprisings.
But within Western democracy, apparently there are safeguards or welfare nets. Maybe not so much in the US, but many other Western countries there are.
Well, let's talk about my country. It's a country of safety nets. right? France. I mean, I'm French, by the way. So France is a country where we have a lot of social protections. Well, if you look now, we were near a revolution last year, and it's still ongoing because of the people at the bottom of the society just can't make it. So that doesn't really work in the long term either. So of course we have the Nordic countries that are doing pretty well, and
it's a complicated system. It's a complicated world. For want of a better word.
Yeah, sure, but I think we are really great at making simple things complicated, right? I mean,
well, for example, like the lower end of France, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the immigrant problem? Is that or is it something? Is it like the regular French person?
No, problem? But I think it's everyone, and I mean, and also the immigrant problem. I think it's
massive in Europe.
It's massive, but I mean, let's not forget that Europe we've colonized the rest of the globe.
So wealth. So we're not talking about Western world then. We're talking about the whole global picture, right?
Sure, we are talking about the whole global picture, but I mean, it's important to remind ourselves that the dominant narratives are narratives that have been created in the Western world today, and that have been propagated much in the 20th century and before during the colonization.
But this 70% you're talking about of the people that don't get their share. They're in the first world.
Oh, great!
Is that it?
Or sure. No, I fully agree. But I think if you were to look at the statistics in the US or in France, they will be near that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you will still have minority. Oh, I can send you a link if you want about that. And you will be surprised about the US, the wealth partition in the US.
I'm not surprised about US at all.
No, but France is the same.
But the rest of
France is the same. France is the same, and we've seen growing inequalities, and that's why there is growing tensions at the same time.
Yeah. But that is a big problem, a big question. What's the answer to that?
Well, the answer to that, I think right now, I mean, first of all, is probably a collective realization that we can't continue on that way without reaching a breaking point that is dangerous for everyone, especially those on top of the pyramid, right? So if money creates power and power creates money, then what I will end up with is a concentration of money and power. But that works very well for the top of the pyramid. But the problem is that it sucks the energy out of the bottom of the pyramid. And when we realize that the top of the pyramid is established on the bottom, if it's, if the bottom doesn't want to support it anymore, the whole thing collapses. So what I mean here is that it's probably not without pointing finger and saying, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy and who should we punish. I mean, I think that's what stopping us from moving is at least having this conversation and probably agreeing that if we continue on that direction, we are all going to suffer.
I don't think there's any way of changing a system like that without, revolution or something.
Right, great.
Because people are generally greedy, right?
Well, let's talk about that. So, man, you take me on the spot. I love to talk about greed.
We talked about it last week, but anyway.
But we could talk about it again. But I mean, let's talk about one. So it's true that the traditional way of changing things has been through violence, but the problem is that if we have changed through violence, we create new power system and new pyramidal structure, which is, at least from my point of view, where we are trying to move away from. But to speak about changes that happen not through violence, we can look at history and, for example, look at the Age of Enlightenment in Europe. I mean, there wasn't much of violent change. It's just people having conversations and getting new understanding of reality that changed the status quo. Today, I have no doubt that we can have that.
But actually, it started before in the 50s, but because there was more wealth being washed around the middle section of the community, right?
Well, that used to work again. I mean, I think there was what we call the Trente Glorieuses in French. I don't know how you say that in English, but after the 50s, indeed, there was this moment of this bliss, this honeymoon period, with the consumerist economy where everything was going well. But that has changed, and in the 70s, we started to overshoot the limits of our planet. And right now, what we see is a crisis that doesn't stop and get worse and get worse. So now, for example, we're talking about the economical and the social aspect, but we haven't even talked about the financial aspect, because the debts are also increasing like crazy. We have all
this money being printed and no one knows even where it comes from.
Well, we know where it comes from. It comes from nowhere, right? But if I print it and I print it, and when I print it, I create a debt and I ask you, okay, you gotta give back that money to me with an interest. Then I have a money system that is based on debt that creates a need for perpetual growth, right? Because you're obliged to create more profit than to create more money than what you received. So you're obliged to you have a perpetual need for growth. So right now, the global debt is estimated to be at more than $250 trillion. And that was before the pandemic, so I don't even know what it is now. It must be ridiculous. So that's, again, another factor of unsustainability. And to refund the debt, we are caught in a perpetual need for growth. That's dramatic because, interestingly enough, so if we look at scientists, when they are talking about the ecological aspect of unsustainability, they say, okay, we need to slow down. But then we talk to economists and they say we need growth, right? So we are basically living in a schizophrenic society where we don't know what to do anymore.
So what do we do?
Okay, great. So I think the first place, before we can address and fix a problem, we need to face and recognize the problem. So it is sad that we are having this conversation right now.
That's what we're talking about now. What is exactly the problem?
Well, the problem right now is we have an economic system, a global economic system, that is fundamentally unsustainable. Fundamentally unsustainable.
Because we're using too many resources for the amount of people on the planet.
Well, simply because it's not rational. So let me explain that. If the economic system is based on the belief that through competition for infinite growth in a materialist, consumerist, individualist paradigm is going to solve all our problems on a finite planet, we're simply not rational. Okay? So when that economic system was created 250 years ago, the world population was, 6 or 7 times less than where we are. The ability to consume and extract resources was 10 times less than where we are. No problem. We didn't have to think about integrating the limits of our planet.
Can I just put in here for one thing? What exactly are we using too much of?
Everything.
Like electricity?
No, electricity. No, electricity is not something.
Food.
But food, for example. Let's look at some indicators, right? Because I can forests are in decrease, fish are in decrease, wildlife is in decrease, soil pollution is increasing, which means the ability for the soil to produce is decreasing. So basically, we can look at all the indicators, and we are almost all we are over consuming. So, but again, let's it's not rocket science, right? We are today a species which ability to predate has been to be a predator ability.
Predator.
Forgive my French.
Like a predator.
If my English falls apart, I'm really trying my best.
Or maybe it's just me. Like predator, you mean?
Yeah, right. We raise as a predator species, and the thing is that our ability to be predators has been boosted by technology, right? And exponential technological progress equal exponential destructive power. Yeah. So imagine that you boost lions with technology, right? Technically, normally lions do not have a limitation to their ability to catch their prey. Why? Because their evolution, which means their ability to increase their speed, their strength, etc., is similar to the evolution of their prey, right? Now, if the lions have access to technology which boosts their ability to catch their prey, what will happen?
Everything inside.
Exactly. They will grow very fast. They will multiply very fast, but they will over-consuming their prey, and ultimately that will lead to their own extinction, right? So this is what we see. It's basically it's as simple as that. Right? It's not rocket science. So how do we respond to that? First, it's consciousness. I mean, are we just...
Go on.
Well, we have the ability to make conscious choices, which means that when we see that something is not serving us anymore, a behavior that has served us in the past is not serving us anymore, we can change that behavior.
That's on a personal level, or on a global,
well, of course,
country level.
I mean, it has to be on the collective level. But before it can reach a collective level, a global level, it has to start on the individual level, right? So if I wait for the other to make the change, and we all do that. We may all wait for until we self-terminate as a species. So it's about starting, but it's also about talking about it. Because right now, we are not having the conversation that we should have. That's the conversation that we should have. Right now, this conversation that we are having is not making the news, right? It's not much in the media. You really have to look for it. So this is a conversation that we should have, and in the mass media, in social media, etc. So thanks for making it happen here. But really, we should have more of that if we want to be able to change what needs to be changed.
So, what do you think, on a personal level, needs to be changed to begin with?
Okay, so at first, again, at the moment, we are not even facing the problem. We are not even facing the problem. This conversation overwhelms 99.99999% of the world population, and therefore we are not having it because it just feels like we are going insane just thinking about it.
Or you could go insane thinking too much about it.
Well, you know where I come from, right? So we need to give space and rooms for this conversation to happen in productive ways. I mean, we need to allow sense making to take place. I mean, right now, the traditional way we converse about that is by pointing fingers and who's the good guy and who's the bad guy and who should be punished and who we should hate, etc. Sorry to say this is unproductive.
Well, yes and no. But you need some options. We suddenly can't change everybody's lives overnight.
Of course,
right?
Of course. This is why we should start by having this conversation and develop this ability to collectively make sense of our reality and of the priorities that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So, for example, if I look at the pandemic, COVID-19, I mean, it didn't take a long time for all world leaders to take this pandemic as a priority and to modify our ways drastically and sometimes destructively in order to address it. I don't think that was a good way to do it, but at least what it shows is that when we give a fuck, we actually can change, right?
When it affects the people we love, for example.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, saying that global unsustainability does not affect the people we love because the consequences are going to be more visible in the future is just being silly.
That's the thing. That's the thing about it, though, because no one's going to take action until the sky falls down.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, when you're driving a car and you see that there's a turn, you don't wait until you're crashing to think that you should push the brake, right? Sure. If you're rational, if you have visibility, you will maneuver before the accident.
That's right in front of you and you can see it. The trouble with what we're talking about here is for the majority of people, they probably have struggled to actually grasp the problem. That's what you're talking about, this conversation.
Great. But that's why we're having this conversation. It's for them to be able to have it. What we've done with our organization is we've put together all the statistics. I've never seen a media doing it.
The New World Together.
Yeah, New World Together. And by the way, New World Wisdom, which we talked about last week, is the part about global sustainability. So New World Together is not only about global sustainability. It's also about self-knowledge and personal development. But anyway.
The link will be in the
Yeah, we'll send the link. Anyway, I'm still preparing the
podcast.
I'm still preparing the project. So, we are still amateurs right now. We're still putting things together. But yes, it's a project of education platform to bring the knowledge that we need to not self-terminate because we are too unconscious to be sustainable as a species, which sounds like a good idea.
Okay, the first step towards sustainability.
Stepping out of denial. Stepping
out of denial. All right. I did. I have. I recycle my rubbish. Put it that way.
Great. So what you're doing here, for example, what would be stepping out of denial? So I hear people now, so let's go, because there's different levels, right? So I love that you say that, Stuart. So I hear sometimes people say, well, I'm more sustainable. I recycle my rubbish. I'm like, no, bro, you're not even more sustainable, right? You just have limited your ecological footprint, right? And to be sustainable in an unsustainable society, you will need to be marginal. Right?
In what way?
Well, in a way that, sustainability is that what you take from where you are, you can do it forever. But if you belong to a society that takes more resources than the planet can produce, technically you are not sustainable. What you can do is reduce your footprint so that you are allowing your society to become more sustainable, but you're not, right? So I think that's I'm sorry, but I think it's also part of the conversation we should have. When I see all this marketing stuff and, sustainable business, etc., I think we are perpetuating the state in denial in which we are. If we say we are less unsustainable, I say, yeah, that's true, right? Like here we are having a conversation. Now we start to be real. But if we say we are more sustainable, we are basically lying to ourselves and to people. And it perpetuates this state of denial.
Yes. But you can also buy organic food, right?
Yeah, great. And that's a great stuff.
Which is coming from a sustainable farm somewhere.
Not necessarily, because you could have...
Around here, it's probably more likely.
Well, let's talk about it. Like I can buy organic food, but if the food has been shipped, has traveled half of the world in plane to be received fresh, it's not sustainable. So we have to,
that's what I mean about being here on Bali, is that the likelihood is the majority of stuff is locally produced. Or maybe, because unless you're in an import specific shop.
So I've been in the import business, and one of the reasons to that is because it's very difficult to import legally in Indonesia.
Yeah.
So a lot is being... That's a good thing, by the way.
It keeps it local, right?
Yeah. So of course, there's many factors. And again, so what I want to say there, and probably that's a really important impact, is we can individually, reduce our footprint to... try to do less damages, etc. But ultimately, what I think needs to be understood is that sustainability is teamwork. It's a collective affair, not an individual affair, right? So if as a species we want to integrate the limits of the planet, we need to find a way to collaborate. Because as long as we are fighting over the turf, we can't take care of the garden. As long as we are in a competition for the domination, control, and exploitation of resources, how can we manage to not overconsume them? That's what is being called the tragedy of the commons, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it leads me to a place that I really like, is that, ultimately the situation in which we are has a meaning. We've not heard the message of whatever. I'm not religious, but we've had many messages, from prophets and stuff that said that we should love each other, etc. And probably back then it didn't really make sense because we were more busy killing each other than loving each other. But right now, what we see is that if we don't learn to collaborate, to take care of the ship in which we are, we will self-terminate, fighting over it for power and control. And that, I think, is extremely powerful.
Well, for example, the oil, right?
Yeah.
Petrodollars. I keep on hearing that, they say there's like another 20 years of oil in the ground. So there's going to be a forced sustainability or something come from that, right?
Well, I don't know.
Or we're going to be without energy.
I don't really know. Again, I think it is very easy to just demonize oil and say, oil is the root cause of all our problems, and and then after it will be palm oil, and then I think we are very good at pointing at externalities and very bad at looking at ourselves. Right? Why are we greedy? Because we're afraid.
Yeah.
What are we afraid of? Not having enough.
Well, someone else getting it.
Yeah, well, sure, because we haven't learned how to share, and we've learned to, But that's by the way the content of next week. So we'll develop more on that. But we've learned that there wasn't enough for everyone, and that we had to fight for resources. It is very new that we are in a position where we have more than we can consume. There's abundance today. There's no scarcity. If we look at supermarkets, I've worked in supermarkets, right? I used to be a manager in an upper market, Carrefour, right? I mean, there's far more product than can be consumed, and that's why we end up wasting a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just more than we can consume, and this is all over the place.
But that happens in hotels and resorts and everything.
Everywhere. So the fact is, we are in abundance,
but not in people's houses so much.
But because
bits and pieces.
But again, you can have a cake that is abundant and there's enough for 100 people, but if one person take half, then you have an issue, right? Because suddenly there's no more abundance, and as there's no more abundance, then everybody think that we need to fight for the resources, and then the ability to manage the resources properly is lost.
You're talking about where exactly? Okay, you talk about globally.
Yeah, I like to talk globally, because if we look at specificities, we can, but ultimately it's more simple than that. I think once we have the global picture, then we can look at specificities, and we have all the experts and stuff like this. I mean, we have so many experts today. What we are missing is a holistic point of view, right?
Yeah.
To simplify.
Sometimes I feel, like, take Europe and Africa, for example. People think, they've got to help the Africans, blah, blah, blah. But they live within an environment that is quite harsh, and they don't have a lot of abundance.
Yeah.
And they adapt to it. And over millennium, they've adapted to it. So what exactly, those people are missing out on something, but are they really missing out on, anything more than just what Western people expect?
Well, it's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because in fact, Africa, for Western standards, is a very rich country.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of the resources that we use for our technology are being extracted from Africa.
Okay.
Right? The thing is that...
I can imagine what. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
food on the table.
Well, but sure, but that's where we have a problem of in our country, right? I mean, per day, an estimated 7,000 people die of obesity in the rich world, while another 25,000 die of hunger in the poor world. How is that making any sense for a smart, an intelligent species that this is allowed to happen when we have far enough food to feed everyone? Right? It's not. But I mean, it's happening because we collectively find it acceptable, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe it's natural.
Oh, yeah.
There is a possibility that.
It's natural. Sure. I can say that
places of abundance.
Sure,
Europe
but again,
has always had abundance.
Sure, but I mean, I think human progress is being better than that.
It should be better.
Right? Because if we just justify everything that is just silly because it's like natural, then we will never have progress, right? So at some point we have to say, hey, you know what? That's fucked up. Maybe we can do better than that. Of course we can do better than that.
People have tried for decades, haven't they?
Well, we've tried, but have we really questioned, have we really come up to understand what's happening with us? Have we come up to realize the fear that are driving us? Have we come up to realize the nature of the collective unconscious? I mean, of course, that's the next episodes, but I mean, that's where I will take you towards, and that's where I think we need to go, right? Because we cannot address this problem by staying at the surface. We need to go deep.
Okay, and
inside of us.
Yeah,
deep inside of us.
You need a deep inside reason to want to do it too.
Well, I don't know if having a future.
Besides, what you're saying about the end of the world.
Yeah, well, sure. No, but I think having a future on this planet is an amazing reason. I mean, I don't know why a collective suicide would be an acceptable future. Not to me. A collective suicide out of unconsciousness. I mean. Or betting on technology to save our asses when
not so much technology, but just natural forces.
Well,
changing people's things, like this pandemic, as we see.
How about conscious and intelligent forces?
I don't think anything changes before it's time.
Okay, great. Maybe it's time.
Yeah. Okay. That's what you got to prove.
Maybe the fact that we're having this conversation shows that it's time.
Okay, we're
right?
ready.
Right.
I'm ready. I like it. I like the I'd like to have a world where there's not so much traffic around us, and living a little bit more peacefully too.
Well, sure, and I like to live in a world where everybody have access to their basic needs, because we understand that human dignity is more important than money. That doesn't mean that we don't have money, but it just means that we got some better priorities than what we have today.
So, but then that's just a bunch of people all wanting the same thing, isn't it? So how do you change them?
Well, again, we are back to collective sense making, Stuart, right? So we are in a position where we need to agree on the problem, on its nature, scale, cause, root cause, so then we can together think about a solution that we all agree on.
Yeah.
As long as we don't have a consensus on reality, it is going to be hard, right?
Well, the only thing I can consciously think about is my own reality.
Right.
So that's me in Bali with these problems that we face.
Sure. So we all have our individual realities, and they've kept us very busy. But on top of our individual realities, there's a collective reality that we all share together, and that's what I'm bringing attention to. Because that's unites us.
That's probably what I'm having trouble grasping.
Sure.
How you can actually change it, because it seems so big.
Well, right. Okay. So of course, collective changes will lead to this reality. By the way, we change it all the time, right? We change it all the time, except that we don't know that we do it. Right?
The which? What do we change all the time?
This global reality,
okay.
this collective reality. We impact it and change it all the time together, unconsciously, right? So we are the creators of our reality to some level. That's what I want to.
Yeah, sure.
So it's important to remind ourselves that we are creating the reality in which we are, or at least we are co-creating it with the planet and the universe in which we are. I hope that's not too spiritual. That's really basic, right? I have an impact on my environment. My environment has an impact on me.
That's right. Yeah, that's the reason why you're here.
Exactly. Exactly. And if I didn't see that,
not only at this table, but on this island and in this country.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because I'm like, I have an impact, and how do I magnify this impact? And I'm still learning, right? How do I manifest the best reality for me and for the world in which I am? I think that's a beautiful question to ask ourselves, right? And we've probably not asked ourselves this question too much because we've been busy. What do I do Saturday night?
I do a lot of that. Not just Saturday night.
So that's why I'm like I love this part, because where we are eating a sweet spot here, and that's meaningfulness, right? Meaningfulness, and that's something that we forgot a little bit.
Yeah. But I just wonder how okay, you got websites, you got international groups or something that you talk to.
Yeah,
is that right?
Sure.
They have you meet with people talking about this?
Oh no, it's very hard, man. People don't want to talk about it.
No,
it's a tough conversation.
But how do you find them now?
Well, I just do my stuff, and people find me, and I find them, and like just yesterday, for example, I was at an event where there was a Balinese high priest who's an activist on the spiritual revolution and wants to change the world and is fully dedicated, and I'm like, there are these people, and when we are divided and separated and arguing about what problem we should tackle first, then we are not moving. But when we start to have a common agreement, a common vision, then things start to move.
Yeah.
So
but
of course,
Bali's a great place to do it.
Oh, great, for sure, amazing. Sure. And I'm not saying we are there yet. Of course, we are at an embryo. At a very early stage. Embryonic stage. Embryonic stage. That's the word in English. Sorry.
That is it.
Embryonic stage. We are at an embryonic stage, but that's perfect.
Sure. Well, it's not exactly embryonic, because I think Bali's been a spiritual place, for want of a better word, for many centuries.
Yeah, sure. But sorry, I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing here.
No, but I think spirituality is part of it.
Of course it is part of it.
So, I don't think you can find a place more spiritual than Bali on the planet. Well, maybe the Vatican, but I would doubt it.
No, definitely that's the place to be. I think Bali is a catalyst of change, just like the pandemic. And sorry to make this comparison.
And for the people that the tracks and the people that live here as well. They have been on a search at some point.
Yeah.
So that in itself creates a different energy.
It creates a different energy, and it has an impact. And I can tell you that in France as well, things are moving. There's more and more people coming together and reaching the same conclusions. That's the thing. It's like we start to have a consensus on reality. Wow.
The reality of what? That's my question.
The reality of our world.
Of our world's coming to an end.
No, of course not. I mean, it could. Well, that's probably like, oh yeah, if we continue that trajectory. I mean, let's not say the world is coming to an end. Our civilization is likely to collapse, and that means terrible consequences. That means like mass migration, famines, potentially epidemics, conflicts. That's not an enjoyable future. And indeed, to some extent, because we have thousands of atomic bombs on the surface of the globe, that could mean the end of our world. I would say, okay, it's not the end of the world, right? If humanity self-terminates...
not the end of the planet.
It's not the end of the planet. It's not the end of the universe. It's just the end of the human experiment.
Until the next manifestation comes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I think we're all agreed on that. So basically, just you're saying that by talking about this sustainability, eventually we are going to become sustainable.
No, not necessarily. That's not enough. Talking is the first step. Making sense is the first step. Then there is taking actions, taking responsibility.
How about this? You're talking before about the balance of this sustainability.
What do you mean, the balance of this sustainability?
Because there's all sorts of people saying that they're doing good things.
Yeah, sure.
The place is changing.
No, great. Oh, okay, great. Yeah, sure. But that's why I'm like, if we look at our micro bubble, we will say, I'm doing great things, and I saw people are cleaning the beach, etc. So yeah, in my micro bubble, like the beach is less polluted than before, except that statistically there's still 120,000 tons of plastic being thrown in the ocean on a daily basis, right? So how is that,
in the whole world?
In the whole world, right? So I mean, again, it's nice to step out of a reality bubble and start to understand that there's a bigger reality that needs to be acknowledged, right?
But I think that's already begun, obviously, 10 years ago, where people are more aware of this problem.
Yeah, sure, and more aware of this global reality. I think one of the big... I'm talking about... the human species is 150,000 years old, right? Our modern civilization is barely a few decades. It's nothing, right? And we just discover recently that we are all on the same globe, and that it's round, and that it's lost in the universe, and that maybe
10 years ago.
Well, no, I mean it's in the 70s, right? But all of this is very, very new if we look at evolutionary, scale. We are in an unprecedented situation, and everything that we are discovering is new. Right now, we are discovering that our planet has limits, and if we don't integrate them, we are not sustainable, and that's extremely dangerous. Well, that's new, right? We are not having these conversations so much.
70s maybe it started, right?
Yeah, it started. It's estimated the first overshoot has been estimated in 1972, I think. That's also when there was the first report about global unsustainability. I think the Club of Rome report, was the first. Which rocket science, infinite growth, unlimited space is not sustainable. Wow. Have you never blown a balloon?
Sure. But for a long time, the people just enjoyed the good times.
Well, sure, we've been enjoying the good times, and it's, by the way, it's
like cigarettes, for example.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
People are smoking forever, and they never realize it's killing them.
Yeah, great, and then they realize that actually when they stop cigarettes, they have a better life, right?
Yeah.
So again, another aspect of that is to not make addressing sustainability as going backward and having to live in deprivation and stuff like this. In fact, a sustainable world, as far as I can see, looks much more enjoyable than one that is not.
Yeah, like in the case of cigarettes.
For
example. A cleaner lifestyle.
Exactly.
So people don't realize that, do they?
I don't
that
think
it
so.
could. But what does it mean? I have trouble kind of fixing my
Well,
mind.
Stuart, you're gonna have to dive in and find out. Right? I can draw you, I can make you some draw, etc. But you gotta ultimately, if you don't see it within yourself because it doesn't exist, then you won't see it.
No, but what I mean is like work-wise, all these people, working and going to the shops and buying and eating, that comes from wealth.
Well, I mean, it comes from a lot of things. It's a culture, right? If we think that, success in life is about having a big house, a big car,
I'm not talking about a lot of wealth. I'm just talking about working and going to the shop and buying something. That takes a system. So
yeah, sure. And that system, I mean, of course, I mean, we need to have a system that provides our needs. But I mean, no more than that.
Yeah.
Right.
So for example, all this mass cultivation destroying, lands.
What kind of life? That
doesn't need to happen.
What kind of life do we have, in a city? And you live in Bali, women are lucky. But look, I mean, the city life, right? Working 9 to 5, stressful jobs, coming back home, taking care of stuff, not having time to rest, and spending the weekend in a mall to consume stuff, to forget that your life is stressful, and to make others believe that you are being successful. I mean, is there really a life that's worth the sacrifice of our future?
I get your point.
I don't think so.
I get your point. But I'm thinking like sustainability, for example, feeding all those people in towers, thousands of people. Or you're saying they don't need to be in the towers?
No, for sure not. I mean that's not what I'm saying. I mean, it doesn't matter.
The crops have to be able to produce all that food,
of course. And this is why I think in a sustainable world, somebody who's a farmer is as a provider, as a contributor, is rewarded properly.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not that said. I mean, what I'm saying is that what we can see is that cities can be made more green. We can produce. We have plenty of ways now to produce food everywhere, even in cities. Of course, that's not the massive agriculture that we see, monoculture with pesticides, etc. It's people like creating gardens, and I think again, I don't want to come with another dogmatic idea of what people should do. What I want is a world in which everybody does what is right, what contributes, because they know that they are going to be rewarded for it. Right? And so if you want to be a farmer, you can be a farmer. If you want to live in the city, you can live in the city. As long as what you do is contributing to make the world a better place, is contributing to enhance life, basically. Right?
Okay. So that is the nature of sustainability.
Well, that's one aspect or one direction that we can keep if we want to achieve systemic sustainability on a global scale. I think yes.
And what we're saying here is that our civilization is not doomed.
No. Well, it's like a caterpillar, right? Is gonna be doomed, but he's gonna transform into a butterfly. Right, but to transform into a butterfly, he has to go a process. Right, that's quite disturbing to the way it is. Right, so no, transformation doesn't mean end. It means transformation. It means evolution. Right, so that's what I hope we will do.
Well, I think in this pandemic year 2020 has the possibility of being the catalyst to make that happen.
So not only has the possibility, but is a catalyst to make it happen. But that doesn't mean that it's enough. I mean, that doesn't mean that we just have to sit in the train and wait for everything to change. We're going to have to take initiatives first at the individual level, so that then initiative can be taken at the collective level.
Well, how about those people in cities and towers? How could they make a change or a difference?
Well, in so many ways. I mean, really, it is like it's by so many ways. I mean, you can organize events about it. You can start to plant. If you want to be a gardener, you can start to plant your own food. You can start to involve your community in having this conversation. You can post on social media. You can. I don't want to say you can vote for less, but I mean, when we see the state of the democratical system that we have, I really don't. I mean, like, voting is cute, but I don't think really it makes a difference. I mean, it's individual actions. There's so many ways. I mean, you can change jobs. You can donate to organizations that are making the change. You can get involved in cultural events. I mean, there's so many stuff.
You could ride a bicycle instead of driving a car.
If you want
those basic steps.
If you want, I mean, you can take less the plane, and you can also be a more conscious consumers. And you can realize that your happiness is not about getting a bigger TV and a bigger everything. And I mean, like, there's so many ways. But again, I don't want to say that, oh, that's the way. Like, there's so many ways to do it. It's just an excuse to say that we don't know what to do. And every change starts with little steps. So again, I'm not talking about going into a freakout and trying to make a global revolution unless you're completely crazy like I am. But I mean, just making small change is already, just having that realization, just accepting to face that reality is a step in the right direction.
Accepting that there is a problem.
Accepting that, yeah, there is a problem and that if we don't change direction, things are going to get nasty.
But people have to come together to that, right? Like you talk about democracy. That's the basic of democracy is the people get leaders that they want. And there's been green parties around forever. They may have changed a few things, but are they working overtime on getting this to happen or not?
Again, I mean, we've been doing adjustment when what we need is a proper deep change. So if we think that, I mean, adjustments are steps in the right direction, but they do not stop there, right?
Okay.
So we have to keep going, step by step.
Well, we're just about at the end of our hour. So if you got something more to say on the balance of this nature of sustainability?
Oh, well, sure. So, I mean, if you're really serious about becoming part of the solution, you can definitely get in touch with us because we have a lot of content and materials and programs to help you do so. We have notably a program coming out on the 9th of November. So if you want to get in touch, please contact us at info@newworldwisdom.org or info@newworldtogether.com.
What's happening on the 9th of November?
We are relaunching a program which is called The Keys Within, which is designed to help people become part of the solution to address these huge problems.
Okay.
It's focusing on clarity, empowerment, and vision. So clarity is about to make sense of really understanding the problem well. Empowerment is feeling and being empowered to take actions, and vision is having a positive vision for the future of humanity. That's very important because if all we can see is doomsday, there's not much we can do to avoid it. Right?
No. Okay. Well, next week we're going to be talking about is human nature too evil and self-destructive to not self-terminate?
Yeah. We're going to basically talk about human nature because very often I hear, it's human nature to be like this and greed is part of human nature. So I want to challenge that.
Okay.
And that's what we will be talking about.
All right. Well, thanks for joining the Beat Radio Bali tonight.
Well, thanks for welcoming.
And you can listen to repeats of the podcast or for the first time, just listen to the podcast. But we are here every second Tuesday at 7 p.m. on the Beat Radio Bali. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Stuart.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.
No.
In 2 weeks.